This is from The Hill. This is from Thomas Massey. Johnson's spending plan is an undead but doomed zombie. Let's see what he has to say. Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky knocked Speaker Mike Johnson on Tuesday after news broke of the GOP leader's plan to bring up a funding bill for consideration this week, despite opposition from members of various factions across the conference. Quote, like an undead but doomed zombie, the CR plus Save Act is back. Massey wrote in a post on the social media platform X. Speaker Johnson is fake fighting by attaching a bright, shiny object that he will later abandon to a bill that continues our path of destructive spending. He added, I won't be any part of this insulting charade. I am a hell no. You guys already saw in this first video that we did before the show started. Yep. Thomas Massey is that dude.
Yo, he is the OG gangster, bro. Like every time he's up and he's talking about something, it's not just a lot of fluff. You know, it's not just like him, you know, pounding his fist and saying something that'll get the crowd like, rah. It's stuff with substance. It's stuff that nobody has the stones to come out and talk about. And he actually mentioned that when he was on the Timcast show, and he talked about when you first get into Congress, how many people come over to you and start, you know, saying, oh, well, you got to be part of this committee. You got, you know, if you want to be part of this committee, you got to talk about this stuff and you got to talk about that stuff. So he kind of hinted at that kind of, not hinted, he pretty much said it outright. You know, this is what happens when you get into Congress. And because he's not one of those people that engage in that kind of sort of thing, he is able to speak freely. And, you know, my favorite part was when he said, you know, any one of you want to come down here right now and tell me this isn't all theater, like that this isn't fake, you know, like the arguing.
Right. And the main thing is like, you know, what is Mike Johnson scared of? Like, what is he afraid of? You know, is he compromised? You know, and most importantly, what are his constituents thinking about this decision? Because, quite frankly, I think there's something going on. All right, and let's go to this next article here, because you guys need to understand what the SAVE Act is. All right. So let's get into that. It says right here, passed the House on 7/10/2024, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the SAVE Act. This bill requires individuals to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. Specifically, the bill prohibits states from accepting and processing an application to register to vote in a federal election unless the applicant presents documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. Further, the bill 1 prohibits states from registering an individual to vote in a federal election unless at the time the individual applies to register to vote, the individual provides documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, and 2 requires the state to establish an alternative process under which an applicant may submit other evidence to demonstrate U.S. citizenship. When I was in high school, I didn't think it was that hard to get my license, you know, to get my to get the right to vote in my first election. Like it wasn't that hard.
It's not. And you know, I'm not laughing because this is funny. I think I'm laughing because I'm like delirious at this point. That this even has to be something highlighted. That the fact that they have to all come together to put this together, to have this as a thing, that we don't have this already as something solid, that we can feel, you know, that there's integrity in our elections. And, you know, the fact that they've gaslighted us for so long about whether or not there was, you know, we did have safe and fair elections. And now we have all of this hubbub over the past, like, you know, whatever months or so. And it's like dragged to the 11th hour right before, you know, one of the biggest presidential elections probably in our time.
Right. And then, additionally, the bill requires states to remove non-citizens from their official list of eligible voters, so basically clearing their voter rolls. The bill allows for a private right of action against elected officials who registers an applicant and vote in a federal election who fails to present documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. The bill establishes criminal penalties for certain offenses. Here we go. But
Mm-hmm.
now we're getting hot. This one
Mm-hmm.
right here. All right. The bill establishes criminal penalties. Stop it. Why is it doing that?
It's trying to mess with you. It don't want you to read it.
I know, right? It says the bill establishes criminal penalties for certain offenses, including registering an applicant to vote in a federal election who fails to present documentary proof of U.S. citizenship. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think that right there is the reason why they don't want this passed, because then they have to be held accountable for their actions if they are part of that chain of command that allows those things to happen.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You might be right on it right there. I mean, that makes total sense because the accountability is always the thing that's missing from a lot of the bills passed. You know, they say they push a lot of stuff when they're trying to pass a bill, but you know, whether or not anybody is going to enforce it, whether or not things are going to actually be, you know, executed is a whole other story.
Exactly. So if we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a reason why this needs to be passed or why they want this passed, let's go into the AP. The court rules nearly 98,000 Arizonans whose citizenship hadn't been confirmed can vote on the full ballot. All right, let's see how they weasel their way out of this one. All right, so this is from the Arizona Supreme Court unanimously ruled Friday that nearly 98,000 people whose citizenship documents hadn't been confirmed can vote in state and local races, a significant decision that could influence ballot measures in tight legislative races. The court's decision comes after the officials uncovered a database error that for 2 decades mistakenly designated the voters as having access to the full ballot. The voters already were entitled to cast ballots in federal races, including for president, Congress, regardless of how the court ruled. So I'm guessing what they're saying is if you've already allowed them to vote and you screwed them over, you can't screw them over now.
Right. You can't just like say you can vote in this election and not in these other ones
not
or
in
the
other
local ones. Yeah.
Yeah, because they've already accepted those results and not taken any action. So that sets precedent.
Right.
And I think that's what they're saying here. Now, for the future, maybe that's different. But for the people that were already here, it's kind of like it's like the Dream Act.
Yeah.
You know, where you have kids that cross over the border when they're children. You know, when you're 6 years old, yeah, you're breaking the law, but at the expense of your parents.
Right. The sins of the father and all
like,
that.
What are they going to send you to jail because you brought your parents over? No, that's not how that works. You know, so I kind of get like where this kind of came from because now they're pretty much stuck with whatever they've been stuck with, which is part of the reason why I think they didn't really push as much with Kerry Lake, because they knew that they were going to lose this at some way, shape, or form going up the ladder.
Yeah, that this was on the docket. Yeah, because Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, was the first. I was trying to look it up. Was the first state to impose documentary proof of citizenship requirement back in 2004. So that's what they're talking about in this article when they say like it's been decades, you know, that they had that kind of thing in place, and it was something that they needed to iron out.
Right. Yeah, and it's basically Georgia 2.0.
Right.
You know,
right.
That's what it is. But of course, you know, Mike Johnson had to avoid a shutdown at all costs. You know, so in order to do that, sometimes you have to compromise things that you really don't want to compromise. But it's clear that this was like a red line for the Republicans. So
yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
You know, I know people, you know, labor laws and things like that, you know, we don't want people working 24/7, but do they meet seeing as how we have so much to clean up, do they meet every single day? Brian.
I never learned to read. No, no, that's what so like
I mean, really, like, you know, do we really have to always wait until there's a government shutdown possibility? Like, come on.
They do this every September.
Right.
Every
Like
September.
procrastinate much?
They do nothing for the entire year, and then it's like, okay, now we're just gonna cram these 26 policies all together.
Yeah, and I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not throwing shade because I'm a procrastinator, but I'm not a representative of people in this country. I'm not in charge of voting on bills that shape this country and put laws into place. So yeah, I'm gonna hold you guys to a higher standard. No procrastinations. Thank you.
Exactly, because this is why the SAVE Act was created,
Right.
because how many other states now are going to go with this precedent?
Yeah.
How many other state Supreme Courts are going to go with this precedent? Like,
Right.
it's too late now. Let's wait till, the next election, then we can figure something out where you guys can procrastinate for 4 years. And then after that, we're going to do this all over again. Like,
That's right.
At some point, somebody's got to put their foot down, because it's made to override the current state issues. Clearly, there's an issue. I'm not saying that it's in every state. What I'm saying is that in certain states, there's clearly an issue with voter rolls.
Right.
And they've allowed this to go on for so long that now we've had people voting in these elections that should have been voting in the first place for like 5 elections.
Right.
And now all of a sudden they're surprised that their courts ruled the way that they did.
Right.
So I mean, what? I can't help you.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
But like I was saying, think about like the FDA, the IRS, the ATF, the SEC. They've got different agencies in every state. So why can't we have a board of elections in every state? We can have those things trying to incrementally eat at our rights every single day, but yet oh no, absolutely not. You have
anything that holds the accountability in the other direction is always an afterthought.
Exactly, because you have to have an ID to buy alcohol, you have an ID to buy cigarettes, you have an ID to get car insurance, you have to have an ID for all this other stuff.
Go to the doctor. I'm like, bring your insurance card, your photo ID, like it's part of my spiel.
Exactly. But this, oh no, it's okay. You don't have to worry about that. It's just voting.
The more the merrier.
Who really cares about voting? Who really cares about, the direction your future is going to go?
Right.
Who's spot? Anyways.
For real.
Right. Now, here's one other thing that I was thinking about is that, by golly, we're talking about the budget, right? And all of a sudden, somebody always seems to come around when your paycheck is due. Who do you think that is?
I remember him.
Oh, this dude. All right, so we got Ukraine Zelensky, this is from the Communist News Network, arrives in the U.S. to present victory plan to defeat Russia because, he hasn't defeated Russia in the last 4 years. Right. So let's go with the video here. I'm going to go ahead and start with this.
Let's get right to the main event. My exclusive interview with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. We met Friday in Kyiv, and I wanted to first understand how he saw the current state of the war. Mr. President, pleasure to see you again. One more September in Kyiv. This one feels like it is happening at a very important moment on the battlefield. Ukrainian forces went into the Kursk region in Russia. You've taken a large amount of territory there. Has that worked? There are people in Ukraine who worry that you took forces away from the Donbass and that those lines are now fragile and weak, even though you have achieved success in Kursk.
Thanks so much. And thank you for this possibility to speak and for it. So, first of all, we had very tough situation on the east, especially on the east, in Kharkiv region, in Donbas region, in some of this direction. It's Vuhledar, it's Pokrovsk, it's Myrnogorod, it's a lot of different cities. People know about only Pokrovsk, but you're right that the situation was very difficult. And they moved very quickly because we didn't have equipment. Again, when we speak about equipment, how to equip brigades, really between us, it doesn't matter how many brigades stand on one direction if half of them not equipped. So you just lose a lot of people. You lose people because they are not in armored vehicles or in something like this. And they don't have artillery, they don't have artillery rounds. To compare the number, Russia uses 12 rounds. We used 1 to 12. That was the difference. Of course, the idea with the Kursk is a risk operation. It's true, we understood it. But the idea was to move some.
Okay, so
Thank you.
yeah, I know. I'm sitting here. I'm like multitasking, and I'm like, you know what? This guy's talking way too much.
Yeah.
All right, so
He's gonna say the same thing over and over again. We need money. He's gonna get it like tattooed across his forehead or something like that.
yeah.
Oh,
Go
ahead.
No.
No.
Go first.
It's just always the same thing. It's like speaking words, lots of words, making something that sounds like a reasonable argument that everybody can hear and say, okay, here, take my money. Where's, let me get my wallet out. But because he's like, oh, what's the point of having, a base over here? Or, I'm probably saying
not
the wrong
posting that,
word.
Annie.
That's probably what he really wants to spend it on.
Yeah,
no,
that's
I'm
really
not gonna lie.
If you guys want to see what she said, go to my YouTube chat. You'll know.
right, exactly. But it's like, okay, but we need more money. We need more weaponry. We need more this. We need more that. And again, he's trying to make that reasonable argument. But it's like how much you want that forever war? Like how long do you need to win this war? You keep saying you're gaining ground, like you keep saying that this is working. You probably bring in a PowerPoint marketing presentation about how you're going to be able to, if you get this amount of money and this amount of weaponry, how you're going to be able to defeat Russia. Like, do we really believe that that's going to happen? Is this just how long is this going to go on?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's an ammunition plant. He's here to make sure that he gets his portion of the pie. And that's why this had to pass, because if that didn't pass, then that means the SAVE Act wouldn't have passed already, and then he wasn't going to get his money. So of course he comes in, strutting around with whoever he's strutting around with to make it seem like, hey, by the way, I'm watching.
Right.
But it's funny how, like, we're paying for his weapons that in a war that Americans don't want. But on the other side, they talk about the mental health issues that we have here with mass shootings, but they want to blame the gun, but yet give this guy freaking missiles.
Right. Right. That is an amazing point.
Like, so what exactly is he going? Because we all know how this process works, right? He comes over here, he asks for money. We give him money, and then he turns around and gives that money back to us, to all of these, ammunition companies or whatnot, to get his money. And then those people are the ones that lobby into Congress using that same money to go in, and you see how the process works. So
some kind of complex I'm getting.
Right. This long, convoluted circle of life.
Right.
So it's the circle of strife, my producer said.
That's right. That's right. And then they go on, hi Beard. And then they go on and they have like this big old press conference with all the missiles, and you get out like your silver pen and you sign it. Isn't it pretty?